What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. In today's video, I want to talk about some knowledge that Jets insider Rich Cimini dropped in two locations about the New York Jets head coaching search and the GM search as well. So today's video is powered by BetUS. Sign up using promo code YouTube150 and receive a 150% match deposit bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. It is now the divisional round of the playoffs, which is my favorite weekend of football of the year. Wild card weekend is great. Yes, there's a ton of games. Unfortunately, only one was all that competitive. The other games were kind of blowouts. I think the divisional round with games on Saturday and games on Sunday with the better matchups are by far, it's the best. I absolutely love it. So now's the perfect time to get in on the action over on BetUS to do whatever bets you would like to. There is also a casino on BetUS. So if you're a slot person, maybe you want to play cards as well, a little blackjack, you could do that over on BetUS. Make sure to sign up using promo code YouTube150. Okay, so Rich Cimini shares that Brian Flores and Aaron Glenn are the two favorites for the Jets job on ESPN radio. Clip's a little bit long, but I think it's worthwhile to play it because he gives some really good insight on both of those guys, why Brian Flores could be a good hire and why Aaron Glenn could be a good hire.
Say that the names that intrigue me and I think intrigue the Jets most right now are Aaron Glenn and Brian Flores. Now, they've already interviewed Glenn. Flores is going to come up this week. You know, obviously there's some very strict rules about when you can and can't talk to these coaches, but they've already interviewed Glenn. I think he'd be a very good choice for the Jets. Done a fabulous job as their D coordinator in Detroit. Former Jet. You guys have talked about this earlier today, how good a player he was with the Jets. And the one question, of course, is who would his offensive coordinator be? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think he's got a really good shot at this. This may come down to Jets versus Saints in the Aaron Glenn sweepstakes, if you want to call it that. Now, I've kept in touch with Aaron over the years, and I know from talking to people around him that he is really interested in the Jet job. I mean, it's been a job that he's had his eye on for several years. And I think he would love to come back home, so to speak, to coach the Jets. Flores, of course, has the head coaching experience. That makes him intriguing. He would do wonders with the Jet defense. Look what he's done in Minnesota. The downside is, he's got the loss. Not that it's a downside. He's got the pending lawsuit against the league. Not that that would be a huge factor, but some people. Skills were questioned in Miami, with management. He went through offensive coordinators there. We know how Tua felt about him. He was pretty public about that. So that would be the question with Flores. But I would say those are the two favorites at this point, the way I see it.
There's a lot of arguing on Jets Twitter and just pretty much anywhere Jets fans could communicate about the head coaching search. I feel like you have people either love or hate Brian Flores. Granted, the Vikings just lost and are out of the playoffs, so I feel like the consensus has maybe soured on both Flores and Josh McCown after the Sam Darnold performance last night, which was really rough. Aaron Glenn, we'll see obviously how the Detroit Lions finish in the playoffs and if that changes the minds of people. But I would say that a large majority of Jet fans want one of those two guys. Yes, there are people who maybe they would like to see Joe Brady. Mike McCarthy has entered the chat now, and there's a strong contingent for Mike McCarthy. Personally, I'd be happy with either one of those guys as the Jets head coach. I think they are both very strong candidates and for different reasons. As Rich Cimini states, Brian Flores does have that head coaching experience, which is something the Jets have kind of leaked and put out there that they are putting an emphasis on, past experience. And Aaron Glenn, former Jet, has kind of been the darling this cycle. And it feels like, at least in his mind, it could be a fight between the Jets and the Saints for that Aaron Glenn head coaching spot. Part of me, because the Jets are not going to express interest apparently on Mike McCarthy, and the two teams that are expected to are the Saints and the Bears. Part of me is kind of hoping that Mike McCarthy ends up in New Orleans so that it makes it an easier path to hire Aaron Glenn if that's what the Jets want to do. Rich Cimini also went on with Will Parkinson this week, friend of the show. He said that Ryan Grigson would be a surprise hire for the New York Jets and that Brian Flores is not necessarily linked or tied to Ryan Grigson, essentially saying that well, they don't have to be a combined duo.
Address the Ryan Grigson, because now there's
I was going to say that was the big one.
Yeah. So, and I fell into this trap as well. So, we're getting a lot of information, some of it's true. Some you have to sift through the garbage, and, he's had a very active, people around him are, promoting him a lot and, contacting reporters. And so I think, sometimes we jump to conclusions based on that contact. In my own opinion, I want to stress that I do not think he would be a good hire for the Jets. He does not have a good drafting record. I mean, he ran Andrew Luck into premature retirement by not being able to build an offensive line around him. Now, he did have a good record in Indianapolis. They won a lot of games. They made the playoffs 3 times with a generational quarterback prospect in Andrew Luck, who he picked. So he gets that credit on his resume. But, I mean, you or I could have picked Andrew Luck, and the rest of his drafting in Indianapolis was suspect at best. And the last couple of drafts in Minnesota, and he does have a lot of say in those Vikings drafts, have not been good. So I would be surprised if the Jets hired Grigson. I think he's trying to align himself with Brian Flores, who I think has a shot at the head coaching job. But I do not believe Grigson would be the best hire for the Jets, and I'd be surprised if they went in that direction.
Is Flores essentially just tied to Ryan Grigson? Because that would be a mistake on his part, I would assume.
No, I don't think so. I mean, just because they're on the same team, and there was a picture posted the other day of them talking to each other at practice with our Vikings reporter, Kevin Seifert, caught that. They're playing, Empire State of Mind, in the background, and made for a good tweet. But I don't think they're like totally connected. I think Grigson more so would like to align himself with Flores.
Again, a little bit of a longer clip, but just wanted to give you the full context of both of Rich Cimini's quotes when he's on ESPN and when he was on Will Parkinson's show, Turn on the Jets, so we could get the full info. And this quote also makes me happy because I am not a Ryan Grigson guy. Look, I get it. The record is really good for Grigson and the Colts, and it's so easy to go, oh, look at the record. That's actually really good. But he doesn't move the needle for me. He was a horrendous drafter. Yes, he was able to take Andrew Luck first overall. I think any general manager ever would have taken Andrew Luck. But I view him as one of the biggest contributors to Andrew Luck's early retirement. A generational quarterback retired at 29 years old because of the number of injuries that he sustained throughout his career. And a big reason for that was Ryan Grigson's inability to build an offensive line. And it's not like he didn't take swings. He did. Early in the draft, middle rounds in the draft, in free agency, and just unfortunately over his tenure could not get it done. And sure, Andrew Luck dragged them to the playoffs a few times and even won some playoff games. I believe the furthest they went was an AFC Championship game. And yes, the Indianapolis Colts have not been that same, sustained team that they were early in Andrew Luck's tenure with the franchise. But again, for me, like Grigson's drafts are really rough if you go back and look at them. Lots of swings and misses on the offensive line, at wide receiver, and supposedly he has some influence on the Minnesota Vikings in their draft room. And if you look at the Vikings' most recent drafts, it's not like they've been all that great either. So he would not be one of my favorite choices. In fact, I think most Jet fans agree with that. Again, there's probably some outsiders or those on the fringes saying, well, look at the record. It's fine. He's better than, he has a better record than, any Jets GM that we've seen. And I get it, but we got to dig a little bit deeper and use the full context. So that's my thoughts on the situation. I would be, again, okay with either Brian Flores or Aaron Glenn as the next Jets head coach. I know both come from the defensive side of the ball, but I am confident in the offensive staff that they could bring with them, and that would get me excited. And I'm happy that Ryan Grigson, in Rich Cimini's words, would be a surprise hire. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary. Subscribe if you're new. Shout out BetUS again for powering this video, and I'll catch you next time.